My name is Michael Silk. I'm chairperson of the Save Our Shannon Organisation. I live and farm in this area here where we're standing at the minute. I'm chairman, as I said, of the Save Our Shannon Organisation. It's an organisation that was founded in 2016 after the biggest flood event I think that we have ever seen, when water levels were significantly higher than they were in 2009. And we were formed basically as a group of residents and local farmers here in this region and business people and so forth. And our basic aims are to put pressure on our TDs and our government to act on our behalf and to bring forward measures to relieve flooding in this area. In 2000, the year 2000, summer flooding, first of all, I suppose, became a major issue back in the year 2000. And we've had regular summer flooding in this area ever since. And in this area, we've had the corncrake, which was, I suppose, one of the most beautiful birds that one could ever have in Ireland. And it was very much part and parcel of this area. And we lost the corncrake in 2002. We had a major summer flood event in 2002, and it resulted in the complete wipeout of the corncrake population. And at the moment, as we speak here, we're in a position where the wadebird population, which comprises of the curlew, the redshank, the lapwing and the snipe, and they are under very, very serious threat at the minute. As farmers here in this area, I suppose it's fair to say that we farm in an almost totally organic fashion. The land along the River Shannon is land that is fertilised to a very minuscule level, if it's fertilised at all. And in that context, it's farmed in a way that is most environmentally friendly, and it is almost totally organic at this point in time. In 2023, which was the year we've just gone by, we've had the longest and most sustained summer flood event that we've ever had. No farmer in the Shannon Callows got his hay, no farmer got his silage, and farmers lost their grazing for almost the whole year. And alongside that, we had business people who were seriously affected. When tourists that were hiring out boats in the local area here became marooned in areas and they were unable to access the jetties, and a lot of them wound up out on farmers' land, totally and completely marooned. And that's the situation we have here at the minute. We have a situation now where summer flooding is becoming so endemic that it's almost wiping out everybody, not just people and businesses, but wildlife as well. And it's a total disaster area.
My name is Liam Broderick, and I'm the PRO of the Save Our Shannon Organisation. To follow on from what Michael said, the SOSO, the Save Our Shannon Organisation, got busy in the month of July after the flooding started to rise here and rise enormously. And with that, we began to make phone calls to various TDs and to the Waterways Ireland and to ESB to get the water brought down. We also sent emails, we brought TDs to visit the area, and we brought public representatives of various kinds to see the flooding in the area. We sent invites to Leo Varadkar, to Micheál Martin and to Eamon Ryan, the leaders of our government, to come and see the flooding in the area. We organised a march here on Banagher Bridge and another one down the river at the walkway in Meelick to protest about the fact that this water was being let rise when it didn't need to happen. We asked, and they came. RTE and TG Cahir and Farmers Journal came and videoed various the marches and the land that was covered in water. And this all led to a meeting in September when Micheál Martin and his TDs in the area, that is Barry Cowan, Anne Rabbitt, Robert Troy and Senator Eugene Murphy, met a deputation from the SOSO in Athlone and listened to everything we had to say. And from that, he went to his Minister for Agriculture, Charlie McConalogue, and between them they put together a scheme called the SCFS, the Shannon Callows Flood Fodder Scheme, to help farmers to replace the fodder that they had lost during the summer. Now, the Save Our Shannon Organisation were delighted with this scheme. However, we realised that a few clarifications were needed, and so we wrote to Charlie McConalogue and to the department, and we raised the issues involved also on the 8th of November at the Dáil Committee for Agriculture in Kildare Street. These few problems I'll enunciate some of those there now. So these are that there were far more farmers than the 230 that were listed by the department. We would reckon there's in excess of 400 farmers. Some farmers that had 8, 9 and 10 hectares only got compensation for 2, 3 or 4 hectares. We also wrote to the department and questioned their technology, this eye in the sky, this Sentinel satellite that was able to detect flood waters on one farmer's land, but wasn't able to detect the flood waters on the land of the farmer that was adjoining the first farmer. Now that didn't make sense at all. And we have gone to the trouble of videoing the various parts that have been flooded in this area, and the rest of the video that you're going to see will show you that as it goes along. The landscape you will see in this video will show the destruction that has been done by the summer flood of 2023 on the fodder crop in the area, the fodder crop that farmers were depending on for their winter feed. Now, this destruction you're going to see is also to be seen farther up the river, along the Suck, in Moor and in Clonown, and that's over on the west side bank of the Shannon. It is also to be seen in Clonmacnoise, Clonaskra, Bloomhill, Clonbunny, Carrick-O'Brien, Golden Island, and that's on the east bank of the Shannon. Our first drone footage comes from an area down below Shannon Bridge on the Offaly side of the river, and it shows we're going towards the Shannon at the moment. It's there in front of us, going right and left, and this shows the land of 2 farmers, one of whom received a letter dealing with the fodder scheme, and the other farmer did not receive any letter at that particular time. This drone footage was taken on the 6th of December. All the land here was flooded from the month of July on, right up to December, and with a little bit ebbing back there as December came on. The splash of water you see in front of you is the River Blackwater, which comes from the bogs over near Clonfanla and comes down into the Shannon. This clip shows us the drone coming from the Shannon inland with the Blackwater on the left hand side, and we're coming up to where the Jeep was parked. In order for the Jeep to get down here, it had to drive through a number of mucky spots, and as you can see from the land is still covered with the muck that came in off the Shannon for the last 4 months. The drone flew at a low level over the ground to show the damage that has been done and show where the pools of water are still collected out in the land, rendering the land useless for grazing or for saving hay. We've come downstream along the Shannon to Shannon Harbour now. We're still on the Offaly side, and as we fly along, as the road flies along here, the road going from Shannon Harbour to Banner is on the left hand side, and as you can see, the ground is destroyed. It's been covered with water all summer long, and no farmers managed to be able to use any part of it for cutting grass or for grazing. Some farmers here got letters inviting them to apply for the Callow scheme, and others did not. And at the same time, the plots of land are right beside each other, so it didn't make an awful lot of sense for one farmer to be getting a letter and another farmer not. This low level footage shows the state of the land, and water still lying on it even at this time of the year in early December. The drone is now flying towards the Shannon, which you can see in the distance. And to the right hand side there in the foreground is the Grand Canal. You can actually see some boats parked on it. The drone has now turned around and is facing back towards Shannon Harbour itself, as you can see. The land is still covered in water, despite the fact that it had receded recently and is totally unusable. As you can see, the water level comes right up to the road that's going on to Banagher and right up to the road that's at the edge of Shannon Harbour. Straight in front of you, you can see a white van, and that van is parked beside a low house belonging to a farmer in the area whose house was flooded in 2016 and who hasn't been able to come back to live in that house since. As we look out over the Shannon again, northwards towards Shannon Bridge, we're looking out into an area called Moystown. When this clip was taken, we had a number of days of frost and the water level had reduced a little bit. The camera will pan around onto the Galway side now, and we're looking out on a re-wetted Bornamona bog. And we will see these two islands again. We'll see the one that's basically mostly above water and the other is almost entirely covered in water. As the camera comes around to the right, we will see the Brosna River alongside the Grand Canal. The Brosna River itself, as you look at it, you'll notice that it is almost entirely covered over in vegetation that could easily be removed. And the canal there is showing the first lock, and farther up along you'll see the village of Shannon Harbour. Once again, the camera pans back over the landscape. The Shannon comes into view. The island that's almost covered in water, and in the distance you see the Bornamona bog that's being re-wetted, the island that is partly covered in water and some of it above the water level. And as the camera comes around, we're now looking over into County Galway where Rivershannon is and down towards Banagher. We're here looking out at the Callow in Esker, below the bridge of Banagher, and this shows that a number of farmers own land here, and out here there are 4 farmers, 2 of which got letters to be part of the fodder scheme and 2 of whom didn't. We're now down just below Banagher on the Esker side of the bridge, and we're looking at the Shannon in front of us, and we're looking at the lands of a number of farmers, 2 of whom received letters from the department and 2 of whom did not receive letters at the time that this footage was taken. As the camera comes around, you will see the Shannon divides into 2 channels. The boats use the one on the left, and the one on the right goes down by Shamrock Cruisers. And in the middle you'll see an island, Inishe Island, with a green patch, and the far end of it is black because it has been covered in water all summer long. And as the camera pans back around, you will see the road that goes from Banagher to Aircourt, and you'll see cars travelling on it. And the camera will come in slowly in towards that road. As the camera pans back towards the road, on the top left of your screen you'll see the re-wetted bog by Bornamona. And as the camera comes towards the road, a farmhouse belonging to a local farmer, unfortunately it passed away a number of years ago, will come into view. This farmer spent the year 2009 and 2016 pumping water out over a wall to prevent the water coming into his house, and he managed to do so with the help of a lot of neighbours and friends. And when we get closer to the house, you will notice that the wall is in two parts. The part beside the house was built after the flood of 54, when his house wasn't flooded, and the back part that goes down his back garden he built himself in the 1990s, and during those two periods, 2009 2016, he put sandbags on top and he had pumps inside pumping water out back into the pond of water. And at the bottom of the screen you will also notice a little bridge that there, and there's only one eye in the bridge, and back in the 1880s there were actually 5 eyes in that bridge to let that water off.
Farmers that own land along the Shannon Callows from Athlone down to Meelick often wonder what life holds for them in the future in their farming situation, especially with their children, and whether all this is viable. Some politicians say that it isn't viable to be paying farmers for fodder lost, and that's a fair point. But it is possible to do other things. It is possible to control the Shannon in some shape or form and have one authority to do so. And it is possible to take out some of the muck and dirt that's in the river, and that would certainly aid the flow of the river and so prevent the flooding that comes every summer and is causing the problems for the farmers.
We're now looking at the Callows on the north side of the Bridge of Banagher on the Galway side. These Callows are referred to as the Long Meadow, and as you can see, the vegetation is rotted down into the ground. Earlier on in the year, in July, this would have been 3 to 4 feet high, and it may have looked from the eye in the sky that this was still green. But in effect, no farmer was able to come in here and travel any part of this land and use any part of this land for grazing or for cutting hay or haylage. As you can see, the water is still out on the ground, and in this area a number of farmers received letters from the department inviting them to be part of the fodder scheme, and a number of farmers in this area did not receive any letter. And it is very difficult to understand how this could have happened, considering that all the land was covered in water and all the farmers were affected. As we look at towards the river, we see that the river floods in off the land, down through the drains, and runs down through the eye in the bridge beside the farmer we referred to earlier. As the camera pans around to the right, we now see the town of Banagher in plain view, and the boats that are hired out to people during the summer, and the Bridge of Banagher straight there in front of us. We're here on the Galway side of the Shannon, north of Banagher in the Clonfert area. Shannon is on our left, Shannon Bridge is behind us on the left as well. The bright green patches you see were patches of land that were grazed by farmers in the month of July, but when the flood came up, the land was covered and the farmers had to remove the animals and were not able to come in to this area since. No hay or haylage was got in this area. Here, as in all Callows, there were 2 main problems. One, not all farmers were contacted by the Department of Agriculture to join the fodder scheme, and secondly, many farmers did not get the full amount of compensation for the amount of hectares that they had covered in water. The Minister announced the scheme, the fodder scheme, on the 7th of November, and all farmers who had lost fodder and grazing were to be compensated with €325 per hectare up to a limit of 15 hectares. Now, €325 per hectare is not a large amount of money to pay out in compensation, considering the present cost of grain and silage bales to replace the fodder and grazing lost. The Save Our Shannon Organisation have supplied the Minister with the names of over 90 farmers who were not contacted by the Department of Agriculture.
In a reply to Dennis Naughton on Wednesday the 24th of January, the Minister stated 268 farmers had been paid. However, the original number was 230, and with our 90 names, this brings it to over 320. There's a shortfall here, and all farmers deserve to be paid the eligible amount of hectares. We're in the townland of Carthy in Clonfert, and straight away you can see the silt islands in the river formed by silt being drained off the Brosna bog, coming down through the drain and going in. As you can see, the land is higher beside the river, and the land here as you come away from the river is covered in water. And in the distance you can see the re-wetted Brosna bog. We're here on the banks of the Little Brosna River at the Lusmagh Callows, stretching all the way there from the Angler's Rest down here to where it meets the Shannon at Meelick. Because the Shannon is in flood at the moment, the waters here in the Little Brosna aren't able to get away fast enough, and all the water backs up all the way along the river, hence the flooding that's out there now and all summer long. On the right hand side here you can see Cloughan Castle. On the left hand side in the distance you see the wooded area of County Tipperary, and this is the meandering course of the Little Brosna as it flows towards the Shannon. Shannon in the distance is going off to the left, and on the right of that would be Victoria Lough and Meelick. The meandering course of the River Brosna is a little bit more difficult to see here, but as the camera swings around now in a minute it will become much more clearer. And there you can see it as you look up into the hills over in Rathcabbin. The water levels here are very much affected by what happens in the lower reaches of Lough Derg. The more water that's pulled out of it there, it draws water away from here. And maybe there wasn't a lot of that drawn out this year from this area. We're down here in Lusmagh still at the walkway going across the Shannon in Meelick, and we're looking upriver, and the video will turn around here now in a minute and we look down towards Victoria Lough. This is where we would consider the biggest problem arose this year in the middle of July, when the gates in Meelick and the gates in the New Cut were not opened fully by Waterways Ireland and ESB in time to let the water away. There was a period of 11 days when there were no more than 6 gates open. The New Cut is that channel down along on the left hand side, the other side of the trees. As we come round and approach the gates here in Meelick, there are 12, and there are another 18 over in Lusmagh in the New Cut, and in July there were no more than 6 of these open. And that we would consider that made the water spread out over the land north of here. There's a farmer going to come on now in a minute up in Clonfert and explain what it was like when the water came out on the land in the month of July.
Just what happens in the gates immediately aren't opened. As far as you can see, all this is underwater. Because of bad management on the River Shannon. I have about 250 bales lost here.
We're back here in the Callows, where we filmed earlier on about a month previously, back on the 6th of December. And if you want to go back and see what this looked like, you'll find it around the 17th, just after the 17th minute. As you can see, there's much more water here. This is quite the same height as what the water was like in the month of July. And it's covering the ground. We see the main course of the Shannon, and we're going to pan right now in a minute, and we'll see the two parts of the Shannon that go down each side of Inishe Island. Earlier on, we pointed out that in this area there were farmers that received a letter, and there were other farmers that received no letter. And the same applies over on the far side, where you see the Lusmagh side of the Callow, the Callows on the Lusmagh side, and that same applied over there. Straight in front of you now, you see the old Green Isle factory, and as the camera comes around, you'll see that the swans have come to inhabit the area and feed on the grasses underneath the water. And once again, we're back in the long meadow, the Callow here that's beside the tower, sometimes called the Tower Meadow. And this is taken only last week, and you can actually see the water here in the grass and the withered grass, whereas the previous video we took on the 6th of December shows the withered grass and very little water. The water again here is at the same level as it was back at the end of July, and once again, there were farmers here got a letter from the department, and there are farmers that did not get a letter. So we find it very difficult to understand how this could happen, and we sincerely hope the department will be able to do something to rectify that in the future. No farmer managed to save any hay in this Callow this year, and there are over 20 farmers involved. As the camera turns around, once again we see the town of Banagher and the boats parked, the boats for hire, and you will also see there the bridge there, and beside it is the Martello Tower, hence the name given to the Callow, the Tower Callow. This is the road going into the Callow, and as you can see the water is flowing across the road towards the Shannon on the right, and it is impossible to drive down this road now.
Farmers in the area, in the Shannon Callows from Athlone to Meelick, often wonder what is the future for farming in the area, what is the future for their families, what is their future for their children and grandchildren.